All right, thank you for coming and checking out the Everyday Entrepreneur. I'd like to introduce my special guest today. This is episode 303. I'm sorry, 103. Episode 103. We have. Go and introduce you guys yourselves.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Gary Frausto, owner operator of Central Valley REI.
Brandon Hardin, co-owner, Central Valley REI.
Of course, I'm your host, Steve Vasquez, host of the Everyday Entrepreneur podcast. And let's go ahead and get started by introducing yourselves.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, 40 years old, born and raised, Bakersfield, California. Grew up in the South Side. Went to South High, Emerson, Frank West, Wayside.
All the hood schools, huh?
All those hood schools. 4 kids, 2 additional kids, man. Got 2 step kids, total of 6. Trying to keep it old school, retro with
got
the
a full
kids.
house, huh?
Got a full house, bunch of sports athletes, people that are going to take care of us when we get older.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So, in the real estate industry, more recent with real estate investments here, Bakersfield locally, anywhere in Kern County, outside of Kern County if needed. Something we'll cover later. Been in real estate for 8 years. A lot of sales jobs. Started off in my 20s. Just took the knack for just being able to basically get involved and just be my own boss, man.
So you started pretty young then, huh?
Yeah, just
20?
make it happen. Yeah, I started 20 years old. So
What did you do before that?
Before this, I was initially when I first started when I was 20, I was doing sales in wireless. This was before iPhones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, selling flip
The
phones.
singular?
$1,000
Singular
razor.
days?
Yeah, $1,000 razor phone, rollover minutes, stuff like that, man. But took to that.
Don't call me before 9.
Yeah, facts, man. So just took to that, being real competitive, sales wise. Just kind of from there, bounced around California, doing wireless too as well, managing. I think at one point when I was in my mid 20s, in LA, I was managing like 45 stores up to like 100 staff members.
Oh, so you're like a regional manager? Or?
A regional manager
okay.
at that time, yeah. And I got out of wireless probably around the time that first iPhone dropped, and ended up going through just didn't want to travel anymore, really trying to do the family thing, stay local. Did wireless here in town, got into gym memberships, doing for In Shape, stuff like that. So always just been a part of sales totally, but I always just knew I was selling the wrong product.
Yeah.
I was selling the right product, just wasn't making the right income when it came to that.
That's what it all comes down to is the income.
Yeah, and then kind of around that time, selling wireless, I remember walking through the mall and I would see these dudes in really flashy blacks, like John Wick looking suits, right? And I'm like, man, what do these dudes do for a living? Oh, they're crisp and cold, man. They sell real estate. They have all the jets and everything in the background.
The Ferraris.
Growing up in the hood, man,
Now they're all locked up.
Yeah, I don't want that part of it. But yeah, growing up.
I think one's like a waiter in like by San Diego or something.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, growing up poor, man, you want the luxuries of life, and that kind of caught my eye, and I knew that was always something that kind of was there. So, guys, we kind of get into it. We can cover some of that, but like Brandon, he's been in the game a lot longer than I had. Man, Brandon was around when everything was at its peak, and he saw all the cars getting repoed and everything. So he has all the good stories.
I was a part of that too.
Yeah, man. Brandon Hardin, born and raised in Bakersfield, hit the big 5-0 in August. Grew up behind Rosa's Pizza. Got into real estate. My grandfather was a builder and had a bunch of rentals. And I remember when I was a kid, he was retired when he's younger than I am now.
Oh, wow.
And he used to have this business card that said, Victor Tormina, retired, don't want much, don't need much, and it had no phone number. And so him and I'd be at lunch, and salesperson be like, "Oh, can I get your card?" They're like, "Yeah," and he'd give it to him, and they're all, "There's no phone number." He's like, "Exactly." And so I just wanted that like self-employed life. I think I want to
get rid. I hit the jackpot. I'm gonna use that one, man.
That's a good card.
Yeah, kick-ass card. I used to have some. I don't know what happened to them. And so I kind of just wanted that self-employed life. I started in finance in the 90s and then wound up a couple small mortgage companies and really got into the wholesaling business, like the investment side, more so the last 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, man, I've flipped a lot of houses, got a couple rentals, and just been in different parts of the game for a long time.
So you did the regular real estate?
I've never had a license, never been an agent.
Did the mortgages.
Yeah,
okay.
did mortgages.
Okay, you're the finance side, which is the best side.
Can be, man. Not during the crash, brother. Like we'd have stuff in escrow, and like that program's gone. That program's gone. So we started those companies in 2000, and they went to 2010. We just shut it down.
So you got to see the pretty much whole industry just change overnight.
Oh, yeah, man. Like it was, went from you can get a loan if you had a pulse to, you can't get a loan at all. So different, like completely different world. But yeah, I mean, all those changes were for the better in the long run for people and the market in general and the stability. Like your house was never meant to be a bank. We
Exactly.
had people refinancing to buy a boat, like
RVs,
crazy stuff
boats,
like that,
jet skis.
sports cars, things like that. And so
Yeah.
overall, I think like the industry is in a better place. But like I said, and Gary will tell you, like, I'm not very patient, so I don't have patience for the regular side of real estate with the listing and buying. That's why I like the investing side, dealing with investors, like the stuff it's a different conversation. Like if you sat in our office, you'd be like, what the heck are they talking about? But you learn so much, just him and I chilling out. Like we were at the cigar bar yesterday and just hanging out, talking about real estate. Everybody's like, damn, it's completely different.
I think the commercial side, people, those type of people don't like to bullshit. Just straight to the point.
Well,
get shit done, right?
There's three sides kind of real estate. So there's your traditional real estate agent, which is I hold my license, I help you buy a home, I help you sell a
Taking a
home.
vacation every month.
Pretty much. It's on your traditional side of it. Then there's your mortgage side, obviously the financing. Then there's commercial, which commercial real estate license and a traditional real estate license are two totally different opposite worlds. They're like two different. It's like those guys go to Garces and then we go to South High. It's like they just don't function with each other. Like they operate from two different rules, and they like things done tomorrow where real estate agents want things done yesterday. So it's different type of vibe. And then outside of that are the rebels. It's the real estate investors. So things like wholesale, traditional creative financing options, different ways to buy where the owner's the bank, you're no longer the bank, leveraging portfolios, stuff like that. So at that point, what we're doing is we're dealing with people that are buying with 99% less emotion. They're buying based off of numbers and what they're going to get as far as the return goes. So you've probably seen kind of like I've been posting things about wholesaling and stuff like that. But so basically, just in a nutshell, what wholesaling is it's an individual that's not necessarily has a distressed property, but it's a distressed individual who, some reason in their life, they need to get out of this property fast.
Or they're probably just tired of it.
Yeah, and they need to sell it cash. They don't want to do the repairs. They don't want to deal with all that, shenanigans or regular transaction. And a lot of times, when I first got into it, I've probably known Brandon for about 3 years, 4 years maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And he's been doing it since then. So the hardest thing for me to grasp was I don't get it. Like this house is worth $350,000. Why would somebody want to sell it to you for $150 or $175? Like I don't.
So
get
Brandon had a school him, huh?
Yeah.
It's been like it's so different than, and I've had investments before, like flip stuff. So like I understood the math side.
Yeah.
Like, you make money when you buy, right? Not when you sell. And so it's still, even to this day, like we listen to a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good thing to say, right? I mean, it's such a different conversation because the seller is just like, man, I got to get rid of this thing. And like Gary said, you see people like, oh, I'm looking for distressed property. Like, no, you're looking for a motivated seller. Like we've had stuff that's pretty much turnkey that, we've had, and then we've had stuff that needed like a $20,000 trash haul.
What was like your worst flip or worst investment?
Oh man,
he's deeper than I am, but I can give you
my worst investment a long time ago before the crash in 08. Like you could buy pre-construction condos in Florida.
Oh wow!
And so you put a big deposit down, and so I did a couple. One of them I did great. The other one, the developer filed bankruptcy. I lost $100,000.
Oh man!
And that was $100,000 in 06. So
it's almost like probably $250,000 now.
Yeah, so that's probably my worst investment.
Oh man! So what were you like in high school, Brandon?
What was I like in high school? I was kind of the nerdy kid.
You from here?
Yeah. Okay. I went to Highland, like math, but I was a good athlete.
Shout out to Highland.
I like sports. Played basketball, football.
Athlete in high school.
Yeah, and then actually until I was in my 30s, I played on a traveling flag football team, and so I played sports pretty much my whole life.
Okay.
But yeah, just kind of a little bit introverted. Like I'm way more of an extrovert than I was in high school. Yeah. It's kind of quiet. Like my parents were super strict, and so we grew up a little sheltered. Like very, very different. Like didn't want us to have a bike because we might get hurt, right? All kinds of crazy stuff. So now, like people that know me, they're like, "Wow, you're freaking out. You're like way outgoing."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's it, man. I was chill. Like always had kind of a laid back personality. I do get a little impatient in business because people make me crazy. But
what about first kind of jobs before the whole finance real estate?
Man, first job was at a pizza place.
Oh, okay. Second
job was managing some of the Rusty's pizzas, and then when I was 22, 22, I got a job at a finance company because I wanted.
That's a big jump. Pizza to finance.
Management. They needed management and management training, and so yeah, it's not because of my education. I'm still on academic probation. I got like a 1.4 GPA in college. So yeah, and then I just got into finance, got into subprime mortgages. Like I don't know if you've seen The Big Short. Have you
I've
seen
seen a
that
couple
movie?
clips of it.
So there's on a TV in that. There's a company called New Century Financial. They were like the first domino to fall, and like I worked there,
Yeah,
and
wow.
so I could see why it happened because of just some behind the scenes stuff that was done, and then started my own stuff, with a buddy of mine, and yeah, I've been self-employed ever since. So yeah, I got into finance early. We used to do some crazy loans at Beneficial, like
So you've been around boss for quite a while already, right?
since for over 20 years.
Oh man, it's the best choice you ever made.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's not always like it's stressful, right? It's you got to pay for, insurance is expensive when you're self-employed, but real estate's good. Even if you work for somebody, that's what I tell like the younger people. Best thing about real estate is like when you get to be my age is the free time. The
free time,
like
yeah.
you can have, if you work hard, during the week you can get your free time and spend time with family, traveling, things like that. So
That's my biggest struggle right now. I got one foot in the 9 to 5 still, and I got one foot into this type of your own business / hobbies. What you enjoy doing in life, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, if it depends on what your 9 to 5 is. Like you can use it, 9 to 5 as a paid education, right?
Yeah.
Like just you're getting paid to work, but like when I worked for places in the past, I made sure to absorb everything, and so I was getting paid to learn and be able to do.
Yeah, see,
stuff
I work
on
for a
my own.
major. I work for a major bread company.
Okay.
It's one of Bimbo Bakeries. It's one of the biggest bread companies in the world.
Yeah.
I've been here almost 9 years. Prior to that, I worked for Pepsi in sales for 8 years. So I kind of got free education in the whole sales part, pretty much everyday basis.
Yeah. It's I think I've been at it for 8 years, doing total 8 years as of last year in March. I turned every time my birthday passes that I got my license, and I've been in that business so it's hard. I mean, I couldn't go back to it.
So what made you get your license?
So
You see the big Crispin Cole guys, is that kind of motivation?
Yeah,
or?
man. I mean, I've always been about aesthetics, man. Like flashy. I want to have the nice shoes. I like the car. I like all that stuff, But I mean, as you get older,
It's like the big Cadillac parked in front.
like
Maybe buying the limo next door.
Yeah, you get older, man. And you want to ground yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start figuring out kind of what are the most important things, but too also, man. I mean,
I take that Cadillac over Lexus anytime. Man.
you got that one life to live, so you might as well live it type mentality,
Yeah.
And I just kind of figured, it's just gambling on myself, and so I was working at Stanton Optical. And I was the sales manager, then the general manager, and I had a big falling out with the district manager over the way they would run their operations, the way they ran the staff, the way they managed the staff, the way their doctors and everything handled all this business for eyeglasses. And I was doing eyeglass sales. So I remember I was probably like 27, I think, maybe 26, something like that, maybe 27. And so the district manager comes down from Fresno, and we just get into this big argument, and he's like, listen, man, he's like, you got a high school education, you make $50,000 a year, you should be happy because there's people right now that aren't making that, and you're never gonna make more than that. So be happy with your place. So I was like,
Oh hell no!
I took my keys off the side, I put them down on the counter, and I said, here you go. So like every point in my life, someone's either challenged me or said we couldn't do the extraordinary in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not that I take it as like a challenge, but I'm like, you know what? I just think my work ethic is always gonna outwork yours.
That's pretty disrespectful too.
So I quit the job. I went back, talked to my at time my partner, my wife, and I was like, I'm quitting. She was pregnant. We didn't have any money saved. I think we probably had like $5,000 or something like that. And she's just like, handle. Do what you got to do. I trust you, and I know betting on you's gonna win. So we moved back in with my mother-in-law.
See, that right there is the hardest part of I found in every single business owner and type of people that want to be entrepreneur is having that partner to support you. You have that as well, Brandon? Or
Yeah, it's tough. Like I was married a long time ago, but like a couple women I've dated were like 9 to 5 government employees, so paycheck's always the same, right? And like not understanding that sometimes you're gonna be out on an appointment at 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning or on a Saturday, Sunday or so. So that's really tough in a relationship.
Yeah.
When somebody doesn't understand, like, why are you on your phone at 8 o'clock? What are you doing? And so my girlfriend now is a real estate broker, owns her own business, so it's way more cohesive, and we can take time off during the week, and sometimes we just got to do stuff outside normal business hours.
Yeah.
But
I think that it's hard in a relationship, man. I mean, it's hard in a relationship because we have the availability to do things like doing a podcast this morning.
Yeah.
To most 9 to 5, they're going to be like, well, that's not really, you're just talking, doing a podcast. But to me, I'm furthering a relationship with somebody, and then also we might say something that's going to help somebody want to break out of it and go do their thing and bet on themselves. Yesterday we're smoking. Yesterday he's like, "Oh, you had a lot of free time yesterday." I'm like, "Well, we just closed the deal. This gentleman we closed the deal with wants to invest in us. We're smoking cigars with him. I'm running comps on another property from 2 other people that want to sell to us, and then I'm setting up an appointment to go on an offer for a building that's 1.8 million."
Exactly.
And I have this conversation with them often too, because when I first started, I was always conditioned to be in the office from 9 to 12 every day, cold calling. And that was my rhythm, Monday through Friday. And I tell him, I'm like, it's weird because there's times where we'll be out doing things. We're still busy, but I get anxiety from like, I should be in the office, but I'm working still,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of getting out of that rhythm.
It's
and
different
now,
times.
Now dealing with the
Yeah.
different type of business that we're in, where we're really in, real estate. People see what we post as realtors, and then they look at kind of the funny shit that I always joke about on Instagram. like I'm getting business through pointing at, things on the screen and giving you market updates and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very customer service driven, but on this side of the business where we're doing the investment side, it's really relationship driven. Like, golfing, having
Probably
cigars.
90% is all
Speaking
relationship
with
based.
them, hanging out with them, and really getting to know them because they're trusting us. These guys aren't going to just buy once. Like usually when somebody buys a house, you won't see them for another 3 to 5 years. That's the
Probably even 10.
They'll buy a house. Usually that's the national
it.
stat. But these investors are going to buy one from us one every other month, maybe once a month. So like they have became friends and family that we stay in consistent connection with. And why wouldn't I want to do things with them, and involve everybody? And they're the same thing too, man. The great thing is they're all a bunch of entrepreneurs, and you're meeting them and you're leveling up. Like the guy that we were smoking with yesterday, which is your friend, just bought a Ferrari, and it's a second one, and I'm asking him questions because I don't own one. Will I ever? I don't know. But I mean, I'm asking him questions about was the purchase one, how does that work? What does this cost?
The buying process.
And then he tells me, he had a regular 9 to 5 job, and here's how he got here, and he's a multi-millionaire. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like I'm learning as if I'm watching a podcast. So it's always another learning.
See,
to
that process is the process nobody ever wants to disclose or talk about because they want to just either too busy to speak about it or don't want to speak about it.
I think, so I've been around business for a long time, other businesses, and I've helped companies outside of real estate, like build a business and do a startup. Like I've always been a big, like the piece, no matter what industry you're in, the piece of the pie is big enough for everybody.
Exactly.
Like there's plenty of real estate business to go around. There's plenty of, catering, whatever it may be.
Any industry.
Limo business.
Yeah.
And so, I look at it like every competitor is a potential partner, right? Because like what Gary and I do is unique in the fact that he's an agent. So and we are well educated on some, like wholesaling and other parts of the investment side. So if we go to a seller and they don't choose any of those, they're probably not really motivated to sell, right? But I mean, sometimes I joke around, like I'd rather talk about real estate to somebody asking a bunch of questions or like curious than go on an appointment sometimes. Like I love talking about how we do things because it's very different.
I think it's very
traditional.
misunderstood.
What's that?
The commercial side.
The real estate side, or just the not commercial, but the
Well, people see the shows like
the commercial side.
like Tarek flipped his house.
You say commercial, I think commercial real estate.
Oh, no.
Okay, commercial. You know what? I don't think they display the polished look. I mean, you look, when I used to interview agents to get on the team or to bring them on to brokerages, I'd always ask them like, hey, what helped made you get into real estate? And it was always, I want to help families. I love looking at homes. I love the process. And I'm like, okay, like quit with the bullshit. You want to make money, right?
Exactly. That's why we all work.
Yeah, I do. I'm like, say it again. Like, and making money is not a bad thing. See, the money is the reward of you being valuable as an asset, to that individual, and that's what they're paying you for is your education to negotiate and get them what they want when they want in that amount of time. but they don't want to display that, right? So we're told, don't show how much you make, and I mean, people can show with their vacations and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But then a lot of agents, what happens is when you look at real estate. So just general idea, people only know real estate based off of who they know in real estate, right? So, everybody kind of knows a couple agents, but no one really asks them, what do you do? How do you sell? How many do you sell, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
You can't really gauge it either. I mean, your sales job, the one you were working at with Pepsi, you knew what a top producer was and what it took for that. And
I was a top producer.
right. So I don't know, but if I got into the business, I would ask you, hey, what does a top producer do? Because I need to gauge that based off of you as a top producer. But in our industry, we don't have salespeople that get into it because you can get a license just by having a pulse and passing a simple test. So the other thing too is everybody thinks when you throw words like I'm in finances, or I'm a real estate, like people think that that's some open ticket that you're an intelligent individual. You really aren't. Like if you didn't like your boss,
I like to
when you had
call it
regular
a top bullshitter.
Yeah,
They know how to talk their way
if
into
you didn't
deals.
like your boss
and
when you had a boss,
Yeah.
and then now you're your own boss and you're fucking lazy, like you're gonna hate yourself too. Like you're just who's gonna fire you? Nobody. Now you have a license to bullshit,
Yeah.
And they get in. So your general producer in real estate in 12 months, if they do one house a month, they're considered full time. If they do 24 houses in a year, then they're considered now you're going to probably be here for a long time. You're a good agent. If you do 30 to 40 homes in a year, you're considered a rock star. Once you do 50 and above, you're probably doing it with the full-blown team because it's really hard to manage that many transactions.
Yeah.
Those are the outliers, right? And that's that top 20% of the 100% that's in the business. But nobody asks those questions. Like nobody goes and starts real estate and says, like, how many houses do you sell? And then they find out that dude sold 3 houses in 3 years, but they're trying to learn from them. Like you can't learn that. You're
You ever have clients or customers ask you how many houses you sell or your background / portfolio?
When I first started, they would ask me, so I knew how to leverage it. But a lot of times, my confidence, but been knowing the business side of it and the product we're dealing with, it was never really questioned at that point, So I already knew what I was talking about. I focused more on the educational side and then getting educated when I was at home. The same way you do this, and the same way you were talking about your business that you have. Yeah, someone probably put you up on game, but you spent a lot of time researching it. And a lot of people that ask you, hey, how do you do this? They don't go look and do the research. And that's something me and Brandon talk about. It's like people, my time is my equity now.
Yeah.
And what I say is there's a lot of people that are willing to walk through the door and say, hey, I want to learn what you're doing. Can you get your time? Get your time. Well, one person's okay, but 10 people adds up, and then you get people messaging you. So what you start finding out is that it feels great to have people wanting you to teach them, but they're taking a lot of your time, which is your equity, but they're not giving you value in return.
Exactly.
They're stealing value from you. And now you're telling them, hey, do this, and this, and then they don't do it, and then they show up a month later. So we have a very short patience for people because it's like, if I got 6 kids, 2 dogs, a baby's mom, an ex-wife, and a fiance soon to be wife, and you have your life.
It's a busy.
And I can still go to the gym and I can still go to sports things, and don't bullshit me. Like go lie to yourself.
You can't get that time back.
Like go lie to yourself that's why you're not producing. It has nothing because I'm doing it. I've been doing it for 8 years.
Yeah.
And when I give you, and we'll tell everybody what we do, but they won't do it.
It's different. So, like with the money thing with agents and things like that. So we were doing some recruiting for something. We got a roster of like transactions by agent. You see these people on social and I'm like, damn, that person only did 3 deals. You'd think by their social media they did like 40 deals, right? And so it's kind of crazy, like the perception that some people give off. And like Gary said with the money, see our side, like the wholesaling and stuff, we talk about money. Like the wholesalers, like, like, oh, this made 25 grand on this assignment fee. Like, I mean, we're pushing 200 grand in fees since like, the end of January, really. We didn't get rolling until probably February, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not afraid to talk about money because like what we do is unique and you make good money for the amount of time you spend on it. You might spend 5 hours on a deal and make $10,000, so it's complete. It's very different. But what happens is people see that part like, oh man, you guys are, because, most of the agents in town, like your average agent probably has 1 deal. We're working on 4, like we usually have 4 or 5 escrows going. We're trying to get deals signed. We're going on appointments. So people see that we're busy. They're like, what are you doing? When you explain it, and they're like, oh, okay, I want to do that. I'm like, okay, well, what's the first step? Like, you got to be in the office every day. Come in here and talk to us. oh, well, I came, like, this is no joke. We had somebody say this. Well, came by the office last week. Now, this is somebody I'd never seen in the office.
Yeah.
And you guys weren't there. I'm like, what's that got to do with you? Like, you know.
I got a phone number. I got an email.
Yeah.
I got
and
social.
so then,
DM me.
then they're just like, well, I don't want to bet on myself. You know, like, what if I lose
literally.
my money, right? This is like a real conversation. And so never saw that person again. So we, like, it's hard. It's work. Like, you know, and sometimes it's hard work. Gary does calls. We do texting. I mean, we hire, some of our stuff is outsourced to be able to grow more and go on appointments and meet with people and build those relationships. But you get, like, we're in the office every day, you know, unless we're out of town. And even if we're out of town, like, we've had a lot of people lately. Well, I'm in Mexico. I'm like, okay, well, do you not have a phone there? Like, why can't you talk
Wi-Fi?
to me? Yeah, I mean, so we close deals when we're gone. We make appointments. I mean, but it's everyday work. And, you know, a lot of these are regular agents and they're already not doing the everyday work to be a successful agent. There's no magic bullet. There's no going from zero to, you know, what we're doing in a day. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what happens is, see, our industry is very backwards. You know, everybody wants to fake it till they make it, and then
I see that a lot nowadays too.
and they don't want to. They want to ask for help, but not ask for help in a certain particular way, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like general society, you know, like if you don't like the response you get, then you're gonna go look for the answers until you get somebody who tells you what you want to do.
Or they get all butthurt and offended when you
Yeah,
try to critique
and
or you tell them the truth.
and I
A lot
bring
of
that
people
up.
can handle the truth.
I bring that up because a lot of people, and I think age is, there's outliers, right? I mean, obviously, people in their 20s can be super productive and out, you know, be better than the other age bracket. But you know, every 5 years you're changing as an individual, 20 to 25, 25 to 30. You know, it's hard to relate to somebody in their 20s now. It's hard to relate to somebody in their 20s is closer to my daughter's age than they are to me now. So what I'm saying is, like, in real estate, you know, like, I think having an office is bullshit. Like, these big ass real estate, like, you have to understand, like, they pay tons of money to have this real estate
Every month.
and there could be 300 agents and 5 show up every month. It's like, it's wasted space to have a logo up there to say you're the shit for some reason, which really, you know, it's all digital online now.
Yep.
But what I'm, you know, so the other side of the business is brokerages just want to recruit heads. So the more people they have under them, they say, hey, we're a great big brokerage. It doesn't mean they necessarily produce a lot of sales. It's just like, we have a lot of agents, you know, and when agents are in the business of saying, not how do I learn the business, they're like, how do I get leads? And they'll leave from brokerage to brokerage to brokerage to brokerage to brokerage. There's like groups of them that hop everywhere, and then they make this announcement, I'm over here now and I'm on a different team. It's like, yeah, you're kind of, it's like being in a relationship. Like, if you're going through relationships over and over, you're probably the problem.
Yeah.
You're not like standing there to learn the industry. So
Do you feel that the old way still applies to, like, nowadays, like the old CRMs or the cold leads and the door knocking and all that, compared to like the social media / you know, paid ads, stuff like
getting
that?
leads?
Yeah.
You know, put it this way, like,
Or even, like, you know, like you said, you guys were just happened to bump into somebody and
you could get leads.
Start a relationship.
You can get leads anywhere, right? I mean, there's the other side of the business is somebody is trying to sell you leads. So they're trying to get your money in return to say they're going to give you business, right? So cold calling, door knocking, Facebook ads, all that, yes, they can get you business, but the difference is you can go on every dating app and you can go to every bar and you can go to every meetup where there's single people. What is the difference maker when it comes to closing the deal? It's you.
it's you. Yeah.
So if you don't know the script, you don't practice the script, you're not educated on how to respond in this conversation. Like, somebody can give me 10 leads and I could probably convert 80% of them. And I can give another guy the 10 leads and he can convert 1. But he'll complain about how shitty they are. And I'm like, spend more time learning the process. Spend more time educating yourself to the market. You know, spend more time understanding things. Spend more time looking at why that didn't. Like, somebody walked in the office the other day and was like, hey, someone sent me 3 houses and this agent we can't do nothing with them. And we were like, well, let us look at them. Like, we probably can make a deal out of them. You know, so it kind of really comes down to just the educational aspect of it. But I mean, my thought process back to the whole thing about every decade, right? When you're a lot of times online, you're finding these fake gurus or these people that are selling you a book or the Tony Robbins, which I'm not saying isn't a good thing, because I went to a Tony Robbins event when I was 26 years old. But I'm not going to go when I'm 40 years old. It just doesn't make it.
Because you've been there already.
It doesn't. really correlate to my life anymore. Like I'm beyond that rah. Like that works when you first get in. You want that support. You want to rah. You want to cheer. You want to put your hands up and chant mantras and shit like that. But then like after 3 years, you're like, all right, fuck, it's time to get the business. Like it's like I got the proof. You do all this shit ahead of time when you go to the gym. But eventually, you know, it's like I just got to show up and eat well and work out. You know, I don't need to tell everybody. I don't need to have the best gym gear. Let's just fucking get after it. You know what I mean? And like, it's hard for me. I can't share shit with him and be like, "Hey, I read this great motivational quote." You know, you look at it, you're like, "Oh, okay." Like we're older.
So I read that shit 10 years ago.
It's about like you know, actionable knowledge, right? Actionable learning, like things we don't know, like, you know, some of the YouTubers that do some different kinds of deals that we're learning. Like that's what I want to. Like that's what gets me excited. Like those dudes have got 1,500 doors and they're doing things like creative finance, a completely different way. I've never been a big rah person. I'm more about the results. Like give me something I can act on, and then when that stuff starts closing, we start helping people, like helping sellers that can't get their house sold otherwise and just need to get out of their mortgage payment and they're upside down. Like we can still help those people. Like that's the important stuff. Like that's the stuff that hits hard for me. Is like you're helping this person that they're out of solutions. Like they got nowhere else to turn, or you know they got a family member that's got an issue and they got to get rid of this property so they can take care of them. Like that's the important stuff. Like we, you know, our sellers, like they really need help. Like we're helping them get through like pretty serious problem, death in the family, you know, they live out of state and house keeps getting broken into and they're just super frustrated. You know, I can't afford my mortgage payment anymore, but I don't have any equity. Like here's a solution for that.
They're just drowning pretty much. Right?
Yeah. And so we're really providing, you know, good solutions. So I'm about learning how to do different stuff that I don't know. Cause I have been around a long time, but man, like there's stuff that I still don't know. Right. Yeah. And I'm happy to learn. And like, there's a guy locally.
You've been doing it for a long time already too.
Yeah. But you never, and see what happens is like, we run into some younger people and, you know, even, you know, that think they know it all. And I'm like, bro, like I've been around a long time and I still listen to this stuff. I still ask this particular person in town for advice that knows more about some things than me. And so it's just different mentality. Like regardless of what industry you're in, you're never too old to learn how to do something a different way, a more creative way. The more tools in your tool belt, the more people you can help.
A lot of things that stick out to me, right? And so me and Brandon got hooked up because he had always been telling me about off-market properties, undervalued, and you got to cash buyers.
How'd you guys meet?
So we met through a mutual friend. So my broker, his name's Tony Ayon, and he was friends with Brandon, and we just all kind of started hanging out like that. And then Brandon would always talk to me about the business, and it didn't really make any sense. So like I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. You know, again, I'm acting like I know everything. Like yeah, like, you know, I don't deal in that, so whatever. I didn't need that asset or that tool at that time. And then a year ago, last January, I remember going to my broker's office. I'm like, man, I'm getting tired of this. I'm like, I really know what I'm going to sell every year. I've kind of scaled to what I want to do and what I don't want to do.
So you tapped out pretty much?
Yeah, I was getting tired of it, you know? I was like, what else can I do? My broker's like, go buy a house and flip it. And I'm like, I have no clue how to. He's like, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay, so he's like, do you have X amount of dollars that if you lost it, you'd be okay? I'm like, yeah, I'd be fine. Anything above that, I don't want to lose, but I'm willing to take a risk. He's like, go figure out how to do it. Walked over, talked to another guy. Me and him went in half on splitting the house in Shafter, and he was going to buy it from Tony was going to buy it from Brandon. He let us buy it from Brandon. So I called Brandon, and I could have bought the home, put it on the market, we sold it, and we made I think we each made like $25,000.
Yeah, because you know how to do it already, right?
And we didn't have to do no repairs or nothing. It's just because we timed the market right where it was like transition quick. We bought it, closed on it, put a box on it, put it up for sale, had it sold by the end of the weekend.
Was it distressed or?
It was. I mean, it needed some work, but because
the market was freaking crazy.
We had no inventory.
There were no houses.
We had no inventory, no nothing. So it was going to sell fast, low rate. So me and my partner, my buddy at that time, Jeff, I think we made like $50,000, and we split it down the middle because we went middle on everything. All right. So then I could have just walked away and been like, let me do it again, but I started asking him, like, where do you get these houses from? I started reverse engineering it. How does this
So
work?
that first deal kind of like sparked a little idea in your head, or?
Yeah, and then he's always great for giving information, right? Because, again, every time I asked for something, I always felt like I tried to pour value back the opposite way to say, hey, I'm a valuable asset too. So let me show you what I can do, and then, you know, get rewarded with some information as well. So that's kind of how we ended up linking up. And then you were talking about, they were looking for a position at a different company.
Yeah. And so, you know, I've been around real estate and I understand the retail side a little bit, not like, and retail's like traditional buy and list. And so I was with a different company, and that company was wanting to expand outside of just the investing side and have more regular real estate agents. Oh, okay. And they needed somebody to train and lead them. So that's Gary wound up coming over, and then we're working together.
So it was a match made in heaven, pretty much, right?
Well, I wanted to learn the investment side, and they needed somebody for the retail side. So we initially both got what we wanted. But what we discovered in the middle of this process was, yet again, was somebody who challenged us and said, I don't believe you guys can do it this way, or they wanted to renege on kind of the negotiations that we first had, the person that we were working for. But what I did notice about Brandon was, one, he was always there. He had the same work ethic as me. But two, he had the patience to explain to me the financial side of some of these deals that I didn't understand. But I would watch him watch YouTube videos, and he would go home and read stuff. And so he learned the same way I did. Mm-hmm. And was one thing he would always say, and I've even heard him say it just last week, and the same thing I say. I will tell somebody straight up ahead of time, I have no clue how to do this deal, but I'm willing to learn it so I don't have to ask you again, and they will teach me. 8 years in the business, I will never act like I know everything. And that's what we run into a lot.
That's some real shit too.
When we tell people, let me help you. No, I've already did this. I don't need your help. I got it. Or they want to act like they do, but like, you don't have to impress anybody. Yeah. Our goal is to get to the end. So all of us,
it's like pretty much who the fuck you trying to impress.
Seller sells their property, buyer gets their property, and we get some money. We get money in the process, right? I mean, we're kind of facilitating these transactions, right? And you get a lot of like, we had a really complex deal. We hadn't done one of these before. It took weeks of like research to figure out how to do it, who can help facilitate the paperwork. And so we're on the phone with the transaction company. I'm like, they're asking me, I'm like, look, you guys are the experts. I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. Like whatever you tell me to send me, I'm not going to argue. Whatever you need from the seller and buyer, there's going to be zero argument for me. I'm going to turn this over to you guys. Yeah. Of course, they're getting paid $4,000 to transact the deal, so they should do all that. But you have to, like, sometimes you got to take your ego out of things.
Yeah,
like,
that's the hardest part too.
Hey man, like, I don't know how to do this. You're the expert. Like, even, I don't know, like construction stuff. Like my girlfriend and I've been doing some stuff around the house. Like we had people come out to do some bids. Or I'm like, you're the expert, man. Like, here's what I'm after. You just tell me, tell me what you recommend. Like, I don't, like, we're trying to be experts.
Tell me how it's going to cost me.
Yeah, like, we're trying to be experts at real estate, right? In this particular type of real estate, I don't want to be an expert in transaction coordinating a creative finance deal or pouring concrete, whatever it is. Like, I've got my area of expertise.
I know it sounds funny, but a long time ago, I learned, like the other day, I needed my sprinklers to be readjusted and some of them to be replaced and fixed. That's a whole weekend type of thing that could be done, like on a Saturday. But I paid someone to do it. Could I have done it myself? Absolutely. But I don't want to. Why? Because my per hour per work doesn't make sense to do that. So I might as well pass the buck to somebody who's willing to do it, right? And they're getting rewarded for it. I didn't even, whatever he told me was per hour, I'm like, that's fine. I trust that you're going to do it because we're going to do more business together. But the thing is, too, is like, that's my weekend I'm spending with my kids. And that's the weekend I get to relax from work. So I'm best fit for what I do best. So it's better to make a team of other people. That's my contractor. That's the handyman. You're my podcast guy. This guy's the escrow agent. Like, why do I don't need to spend any more time? Like, you think, even with sports, I mean, you're particularly great at what you're supposed to be at in that position, So me and Brandon, we're talking. So one day we go, so real quick, just so I can give you an idea about a wholesale real quick. So the way a wholesale works is somebody gives us a property. So we go up to somebody and say, hey, I want to buy your property. They want to sell their home. And we go up to them, we look at the house, kind of assess what we think it'll cost to repair it, and we work backwards. So we say, this house will sell for, $350,000 if it's rented, if it's fully fixed up. Basic lipstick on a pig type of stuff, the floors,
paint.
Stuff that's going to make someone want to get into it, really get there. Obviously, the flippers, really, it's up to them what they want to take in consideration about the plumbing or anything else. But I mean, that's whatever they want to do for their cost. So then from there, we come up with the sales price. And so then when we meet the owner, what do you want for the property? Generally, the owner's pretty close to what we would buy it for because they're not dumb. I mean, there's a lot of data.
They already know already too. Yeah.
So what we do is if we don't want to buy it and hold it ourselves, we have an option to sell it to some other investor. And so what we do is we take that agreement. We have our investors that we work with personally all the time that have the money that they love to buy and flip. That's their thing, And people say, well, why wouldn't you want to do it if it's such a great deal? Well, if I'm going to put out my money and my money's going to sell out for 90 days, I can wholesale 2 to 3 properties and make that in less than a month. So the risk isn't worth the reward. I'm doing this at high demand, so it's better for me to give it to you if you're only doing one a year or every other month, you know?
And it's unique. So we're not selling the property. We're selling that piece of paper, like this contract that we get signed. So we don't take title. We don't do any of that stuff.
So we get it for
just a middleman, pretty much.
yeah, your camera thing. So, is it still recording?
Okay, go on.
Oh yeah. So basically, what happens is, let's just say we get something for $100,000. The owner wants 100, and we know we can sell it for X amount of money to an investor. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tack our fee on top of that and sell it on. So we'll sell it for 120, 125, 130. So we don't really want to add too much on there for our fees for the paperwork because we don't want to cut into the investor's profit. But it's fully disclosed. Everybody knows what they're doing. The investor knows that they're paying us for what they call the assignment.
Yeah.
So we try to keep our average deals to about $20K to $25K
Just a reasonable mark.
per transaction when we work our numbers.
We've done one for $1,500, right? Just to get it taken care of. I mean, you know, and so it depends. Like you can't be greedy, right? You gotta, especially if you have regular buyers, like Gary's saying, like, hey man, I can only, like, I'm tight on cash. I can only pay this much. Okay, we might make $7,000-8,000, but we maybe already
money's money.
Maybe already made $100,000 off that person.
Yeah,
right?
for
In
very
7-8
minimal amount of
transactions.
work.
Yeah.
And it's cool though because like I mean we took something one time that was, you know, I'll just make up a number, bro. We got a manufactured home and it was the lady wanted 10 for it and we sold it for 50.
Oh wow.
So I joke online when I say people work real hard on their image, buying leads to be a luxury agent, and I can go to work in retro ones and a baseball cap, and I'm making more than
4 or
you.
5 times.
I'm making more than you
4 or 5
than it
times
did
the
for
amount,
you to put a sign up and host an open house. And it's like, it isn't that I'm throwing jobs at agent. It isn't that we're throwing jobs. It's like, get educated. Like this market's, the rates, the lack of inventory right now, the lack of production, people looking for other jobs as real estate agents. Like all you have to do is remove your ego and get educated to what else you can do in this business to make money.
Yeah. When we've paid, so, you know, we work with other agents. We have people that will send us deals. I mean, we've probably paid out, I don't know, 30, 40 grand
And referral fees.
30, 40 grand in referral fees to other agents and things like that. So the great thing about real estate is there's so many ways to make money.
Yeah. And so what's the time look like right now? We're running up pretty good. Okay. So one thing I want to mention is, you know, growing up and going to, you know, South High and then graduating and not going to college, but just staying local, you know, I really believe is what your parents would say, you are who you surround yourself with. And one thing I, you know, a lot of, and not to knock my class of South High, but 01, but there really isn't a lot of business owners in that side of, you know, Bakersfield. So, you know, contrary to anybody had the belief or actually admitting to it, like a lot of other guys that have got into the business that graduated from higher, more educated, higher, you know, different schools with different, you know, base salaries for the parents and stuff like that. Like a lot of their friends, when they graduate and they're all business owners. So some of these guys can get into the business and immediately start selling high caliber homes at a higher price value, and they'll never admit it, appreciate it, or agree to it, right? Because it's almost like a badge of dishonor to say that I'm doing that. So some of the advice that I would give to agents or anybody that's kind of getting into this side of the business is one, get your ego out of the way and just understand where your starting point was and where you started at life. But what really worked out best for me and Brandon is Brandon's 10 years older than I am, and I saw his work ethic. But also, too, I knew who Brandon and Tony hung out with. And all these other business owners were just your friends. And I never personally looked at these other business owners like, oh, these are going to be potential buyers or potential people that we can get money from. I always thought these were potential educators. And when I sit down with Brandon, hanging out with Brandon, I've been able to meet so many multimillionaires, and they're just cool ass dudes, right? And I mean, one time I remember walking into Luigi's, and this is when I used to get dressed up all the time. And I would be dressed up in a suit, and I was hanging out with my broker. And, you know, I'm bald headed, got a beard, I'm big, I got tattoos. I look like a cholo in a suit, like going to the court on court day, you know. And I told him, I said, you know, you're introducing me to a lot of people that make a lot of money, and I feel this is probably middle of my career.
Were you really intimidated at the time?
Intimidated that I don't fit in. And he said to me, he says, don't go tell. You're not going to tell the head heart surgeon, because this is who his friends are, like the head heart surgeon or the guy that runs the hospital, how to do their job.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell that person how to run their business, because they're not going to tell you how to run real estate business, because they don't know it. So
true.
you know what you're good at, and you be who you are when you're around them. And I'm like, well, fuck, that makes sense. And he's also quit dressing up like that, like be normal. We're in Bakersfield, you know. So I scaled it back, right? Because I'm hiding something about my person. I'm hiding something that I was intimidated by, because I had to look like I had my bow tie and all my suits on and shit like that, you know. And you know, one thing about hanging out with him and then meeting Brandon is I got out of my inner circle of what my average friend would make a year, right? And they were only educated to so much, because the truth is no one teaches about money. No one teaches about this other side of the business and stuff, right? And maybe when you do know one person that's an outlier, you're too afraid to ask those questions. You're intimidated. But they brought it into a welcoming standpoint where I'm meeting like the guy yesterday that's a multimillionaire. I mean, and
you never know.
He's
like the
cool
dude
as
is
shit.
like.
Was that one of your biggest
t-shirt,
struggles, kind of like
shorts.
being in that inner circle and being stuck there for so long, or?
No, I didn't really. Well, because I'm vocal and I can communicate. I knew that's kind of what it was. But then what I also think too is I've always wanting someone else to go with me. So I always wanted to pull another guy with me and not go alone.
Yeah.
And I had to realize I just couldn't.
It's like being a rapper with your entourage.
I couldn't rely on anybody else to have the same amount of work ethic that I did, and I had to go on my own. And then eventually I met him, and I was friends with Tony, and then I felt like
Find a new circle, pretty much.
yeah, no longer was I just learning, but I was a friend, and I was accepted as a valuable asset, because they saw how hard, or what I do as far as my work ethic goes. That I knew my place with the team.
Yeah.
And, you know, him introducing me to people helped. And I hate to say it, I have to leverage him, man. Hey, he's older than me. Look at his complexion. He knows finances better than me. But, I mean, I don't say it out loud, but that's how I get to the table with everybody. And then when everybody meets, they're like, you're cool as shit. Oh, you got a Cadillac, and you're a cool guy, and we know sports. And, you know, you're just one of the guys now.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I appreciate about with working with him, man. He's never made me feel dumb, and he's always telling, man, later I will not act like I don't know in front of people, but we get back and like, hey, can you explain that to me? I don't understand what they said, and he'll break it down to me, and I'm okay, that makes sense. Or if he doesn't know, we'll go look into how to get better at the process. You know what I mean? And that's one thing I want people to understand. Education is really out there. It's free. It's online, and it's by getting out of your own way and meeting other people, and then like you hear leveling up, but really just getting into different circles, and then it's just saying I don't know, but leverage the best part of you. If you're a great person, fun to be around, apply that, but still ask questions consistently to learn, and then hey, what can I do to help out as well? You know what I mean? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I mean this part of what we do, the wholesaling, the creative finance, those kind of things. Like we talk about agents and things like that a lot, but I don't have a license. I've never had a license. Like somebody that's willing to educate themselves and put the time in that doesn't know anything about real estate can, do some of this or come to us or, and we'll help coach them and, they can make decent money with no real estate background.
And that's very surprising that you don't have any type of real estate license or anything.
I've been
done good for yourself the whole time.
I've been part of so many transactions just from like mortgage and finance.
Well,
I've been part of thousands of transactions, and like when Gary and I talk about this a lot, like, and it doesn't matter, like insurance license, real estate license, whatever, like there's certain traps to the training and like what that job is supposed to be that it's hard for people to get outside of their head and think outside of the box. Me, like, I've started a bunch of, like this company we started from the ground up. It's completely bootstrapped with our own money.
Oh, wow.
So, I've started companies with nothing. And I think not having a license, you don't just, when you have a license, you feel like, oh, I got to stick to this and use my license that I have, right? I don't want to veer from here, even if you can make twice as much money for half the work.
So you won't be tied down to one
It's a
thing.
really, like, it's a mindset. Like, you get stuck thinking in this little rectangle that your license is in, and your head and your mind is just in that all the time.
Well, one thing too is you said commercial. Like the commercial thinks that you're supposed to have a license. You know what I mean? The commercial, and it's just another thing. I need to get this in order to do this. You know? And I mean, I renewed my license in March, and I'm like, the joke was, I'm like, fuck, I really don't need it. Like, what do I need it for? Like,
he was on the phone on a deal on a traditional real estate deal. I'm like, man, you spent more time on the phone with that than we did working our
10
two deals.
It's
Yeah,
10
a bunch
So
of
I had
deals.
one deal with we were selling a house, and I talked to that seller because 20% of his actual transaction, the other 80 is the emotions.
Yeah.
If you've ever bought or sold or moved, or even moved from a rental to a rental, like it's stressful. So we're dealing with that, right? And I'm on the phone so much in 45 days with this one seller. And this is multiple. This is why you go home and you hold a lot on your shoulders. And it's hard to, you shut down because you just need some downtime because you're dealing with all these emotions. Like we're more of like a therapist, like managing buyers and sellers' emotions.
Because everyone has a situation pretty much.
And people think empathy is I need to be involved with you about your problem. Empathy is just like you said. It's just like you need to understand it.
Yeah.
And acknowledge it. You don't need to be involved in their emotions. Your job isn't to do that. It's to keep the emotions out and get from A to Z. So, so he's laughing the whole time. He's like, damn, he's like, you're on this phone more than we've been with like 10 people within the last like 2 months. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
like, yeah, I guess you're right, But the smart side of me is to say, you know what do I need to pull from this to continue? Can I pass this business to another individual and let them do what I'm doing if they're willing to come in and then let me focus on what makes us well? I mean, in all honesty, we're into May. And I think if everything for our first year out on our own, right, with our own money into this involved, I want to say we're probably going to gross over $500,000 this year.
That's not bad.
And I'm like, man, I really think if we we probably could do $1 million. I there's nothing. Had you asked me a year ago,
They were only 5 months in, so.
And you got to understand too, like we work, 4 or 5 hours a day, right? We're not, he's got kids to pick up in the afternoon. We go on appointments and stuff, but for the amount of hours we put in, for the amount of income is crazy. And we like this kind of business, if you do it right, even with things outsourced, your expenses are very, very low. So we're at like 95% profit margin.
And our goal is to really always be more as automated as possible, which means what I love is that we can let go of the reins. Once we understand the process, it's easier for us to, I used to cold call. I don't cold call anymore. Now we have dialers that we have hired. We have all the leads that we purchase. We have the marketing ads that are going out, and he understands it. So it's great because I know that we're getting the right purchase. And then not only that, we're leveraging our education of what we know with other people that are coming up with new products that are giving us products for free to demo them. Like we're in this community of like, okay, how do we help each other? And we all get we get the bag.
Piggyback off each other too.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like when I don't want people to think that we don't work. It sounds great to say, but when you're a banger, you're a grinder, hustler, whatever the word you want to use. You're always working.
Yeah.
Just because you're not there mentally, you're always, what else can we do? How do we tighten the product? Hey, every day it's like, hey man, I found this new thing. What do you think about this? Like we're working on this another deal and it was cool. It's always the coolest shit. This is why everything we do or I do there's a rhyme and reason to it. I take my Cadillac to go smoke cigars and we end up meeting this cool dude. Yeah. EC from the cigar bar. He's retired, but he has a welding business as well. Loves welding, and we invited, hung out, smoked cigars with him. Ended up finding out dude's fucking rich, right? So it's like he's cool as shit because he loves his welding, all the shit he makes, everything like that. He's opening up a weed farm.
Yeah.
He's getting that approved. It's not in Bakersfield, but it's away from Bakersfield. But it's just like, how much are you gonna make? Multi-million a year? And he's just like, he brings me a couple bottles of wine. He's like, I'm like, do I owe you anything for these? He's like, nah, man, I'm rich, bitch. I'm like, shit. But what I'm saying is that what sparked the conversation.
You guys got a common interest.
It was my fucking car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we talked about cars. And I never said I do real estate. We never press upon people what we do. We just hang out and be us. Yeah. And then it's like, well, what do you do for a living? I'm like, we do real estate.
That's the biggest asset.
I always say real estate stuff. And they're like,
stuff.
what does that mean? Because we're not traditional, right? Like we have the traditional side. But yeah, it's funny because I have, now that because we've been so successful and the lingo is completely different, like I said, and people are intrigued by what we talk about because they probably never heard some of these things before. Like we've had quite a few people like, hey, we want to invest money with you guys. I've never asked for it. Like not one time. Gary's never asked, but you're like, oh, we want to give you guys some money. Which
I'll take
to me
it.
that's cool. Like to me, that's a big testament to how we do business and how we are as people and our relationships.
Yeah, they see you guys and they see the results you guys produce.
Well, the other thing too is you would think that somebody who's a millionaire, multimillionaire, etc. Because they got to there, they also have a general grasp of money. Because you also realize because you have buddies that are financial planners that we hang out with all the time, right? He's our agent. I'm like, he's like, yeah. A lot of times they don't know what to do. That's why they hire me because I need to put their money somewhere. And we come. That's the conversation we end up having, and it's like, yeah, man. Like they don't know how to get a return on their money. let's give them a return. How do we figure that out for them? Here's these different assets that we have, and I always say it like this, like I would go to friends and I'd be like, hey, if you give me 10K, I'll give you 8% return. And they're like, well, how much is that? I'm going to get back 800 bucks.
Yeah.
No, but then we had a conversation. It's like, you can't, people, when you ask them for 10,
they don't understand.
No, the real question is, if you lose, most people need that 10 in my circle. That would they can't be without it for 90 days or less, right?
Shit, think like 80% of Americans don't have $1,000 in the bank account.
So they can't be without it. So then there's times where he's like, hey man, this guy has $500,000, and he's here's how if we can get him this return, he might be interested in talking. I'm like, $500,000 to make this, that's all he's gonna get back. But I'm thinking poor. I'm thinking and I'm putting myself in his shoes, which it's like. Whenever somebody says, hey, that guy bought that baseball card for $17 million. Wow, they paid that much. I'm like, wow, how much does he fucking make that he can buy a card for $17 million?
That's like $100 to us, right? That
yeah, no
dude's probably
shit.
got hundreds of millions of dollars.
Like,
so it's a different, like just different mindset. I mean, somebody that drives, and like I know some very wealthy people that just drive normal cars, but dudes that drive expensive cars, like, they're either really rich or broke. Like, there's no happy medium, right? But most of the people, like EC, like most of the people we hang out with that are very successful, like you never know anybody had any money.
And they all
just like
that's true.
Everybody's in like sweats, freaking t-shirt,
and they all want to spread the wealth.
I'll give you a prime example. I'm not gonna say the name, but a very big hospice company that just sold to another company. My dad worked for the actual owner. He started from nothing. He told me the whole story, the whole layout. Well, he lived in Stockdale Country Club. His CEO lived in River Lakes, Grand Lakes.
Yeah.
And this dude's just so minimal, so humble. Don't have a brand new Lexus or nothing. He had like an old, like 2007 Pebble Beach Edition SC or whatever. And compared to the CEO, and you would think it'd be flipped around the other way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what, man? A lot of times those stories they're great stories to put life in perspective. You know what I mean? When you're at where you're at, but also too, one thing is don't ever be afraid of who you are.
Exactly.
And if because it's hard, right? For me to talk to somebody that says, well, I don't get why you want to buy that, and why. I'm like, motherfucker, that's me. Like, that's just my personality. like I don't want to fight who I am, right? But if I want to buy this, then I'm like, look, man, being 40 years old, I mean, you're 50. The minute I turn 40, oh, you're almost 50. The minute I turned 40, I Googled it and it said midlife. And I heard Joe Rogan say the other day on a podcast, he's like, at 40 years old, you're closer to death than you are to being alive, like living. And I'm like, fuck, I am. Like, growing up, I was more worried about getting beat up, shot, stabbed. Well, maybe not now, the way the world is, but going out partying, all that shit in your 20s. And you
just want to turn 21 so you can legally drink, right?
20s, man, you don't think about this because you have time isn't a concept. There's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Now it's like colon cancer, fucking cancer. Like, yeah, there's shit that happens before 40.
Car
but like
accident.
after 40, you're like, fuck, like now I got to really be concerned about my health, right? So
not even that, just living life in general.
So stop fight. It's almost like stop fighting who you are. I always say don't focus on the shit don't try to fix the shit that you're bad at or your shortcomings. Double down on the shit you're good at and fucking and go full throttle on that and give those tasks that what you're bad at to somebody else. And anybody who says, he always says this shit. Somebody used to tell me, you can't change the color of a Ferrari because they'll sue you. And Ferrari doesn't allow that. And he goes, you know who fucking says that? People who don't know shit about Ferraris, you can't own one.
Like, what color is your Ferrari?
And I'm like, you know what? You're fucking right. I know someone, I saw someone on Instagram who has one, he painted it. And then even Rick was talking about, he was saying about things he's doing this car. I'm like, you know what? You're probably fucking right. Like, or they tell you how much the maintenance is, but they don't really, it's like, they don't know, It's like,
Exactly.
if you haven't experienced
I'm
you
not
don't know.
buying this because it costs $20,000 to do the brakes. I'm like, no, you're not buying it because you can't afford it, which there's nothing wrong with that.
But don't shit on the person
but
who...
don't, like, hate because somebody's doing good or they got something you want. I mean...
I used to have a buddy, man. He loves expensive shit. Shoes, clothing, etc., right? Successful, good at sales, all that kind of stuff, man. I can't take that shit away from real estate, too. One thing he said to me one time, he said, like, listen to me. And I kind of went on that trip where I kind of wanted to, pull back on things, right? And that was just me for my own personal life. And I remember having a conversation with him. He said to me, listen to me, man. I grew up fucking dirt poor. And buying new shoes and buying nice cars make me feel good. Mm-hmm. Don't take that away from me. And I'm like, I can't. You're right.
That's true.
You know, but you work your ass off. You could be different.
Yeah.
You got food on the table. Your family's happy. Your kids are going to college. You fucking do what you're successful. So who am I to fucking put that on you? You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to make you feel like you shouldn't do that to make a better decision with your finances. You know what I mean? So like I said, man, just double down on who you are and never stop fucking learning. Like that's one thing when I talk to people that are older than me, 60s, 70s, and these dudes are sharp as a fucking blade, dude, in the tool shed. Like you're like, damn, like, and it's like they always keep learning. They retired at 40, but never really retired from work. They keep doing a new business. They keep, I'm like,
and they learned all the bullshit years ago too.
Yeah, they know how to cut it out and get straight to it. I'm like, you know what? That's really that's the trick in life, man.
Yeah.
You just never get complacent and keep learning. Like they never retire, and when you do, what did they say during goddamn what movie was it with Kyrie Irving where he was like he was dressed up older and he was playing basketball. Do you remember that movie?
What was it? The one Uncle Drew.
Uncle Drew. I think they had a line in there is like, you don't get old from playing the game. You get old from not playing the game.
That's
and
true.
like that really stuck to me. I'm like, when you stop wanting to play the game of life, you're gonna get old.
Like I'll always do some real estate stuff. I mean, there's no reason not to. I mean, it's, you can help people. Money's good. You can, a little different for me because I don't have kids, so I'm not as worried about the legacy stuff necessarily. And we have stuff for my niece and nephew.
It's not too late.
Yeah, no, trust me, it's too late. Like I like going to my girlfriend and I like going to Vegas every 6 weeks or whatever, and it's hard enough with pets. But it's you can, like I said, never going to retire. There's always going to be a real estate deal out there, or somebody with a question, or something like that. Like Gary was saying, we're being able to step away from the day to day and some of the grind stuff is the most important thing right now, which is what we're working on, and and we want to take what we do, and we're working on getting all of our systems and the people we work with and partner with in place. Then we'll probably take what we're doing and to another city
Get them
somewhere
automated.
here, and just try to have this what we do with the partners that we use, with the same cold callers, with the same texting, with the same, in maybe 3-4 other places, and then that's good. That's good for me.
I absolutely feel that. Headed into next year, I mean, you could be like, well, what are you concerned about the market? I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm concerned about because we're insulated in Bakersfield. We're different than everybody else.
It's a different market.
The mentality, price range, who's buying, whatever. But no, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that. And you would ask me this before last year, but I would have said, yeah, fucking no way, right? Because I really couldn't have grasped it. But now I really feel like, our set bar will be nothing less than grossing $1 million a year. Like and that's just between me and him. Yeah. Then what I love is like, it's always like dragging to say, we're going to get automated. So now we need to.
Or even getting a bigger team together too.
If you automate, I mean, it would be nice to have somebody to go on appointments, right? And then do some of the things we do. But both of us kind of like the appointments,
Yeah.
And it's hard to replace
you,
like Gary's knowledge and like our combined knowledge, right, with somebody that's new, like the negotiation and what to say and things like that. And
it's like Batman and Robin.
It's kind of hard to let go of that part, because if you tell a seller the wrong thing, they're gonna be like, oh no.
Someone told me my old broker told me, it's like, out of 100 people, you're gonna find one you. And I'm like, damn. Like, so like when it comes to the interviewing process to put the next person on, it's like, you just got to get past the bullshit. And really, it's like, what have you been through that's knocked you down that you got back on your ass and kept going? Yeah. I've been broke 3 fucking times.
What would you guys say you guys' biggest struggle is up to this point?
Lead gen. I mean, that's a struggle for everybody.
Like business-wise or personal?
Yeah, business.
Both.
I'd say business is lead gen, and like I'm a little bit of a control freak. Like, getting stuff to the point where we can give up the reins, right, to a certain extent. And, it's hard because, in wholesaling, or what we do, just the investment side in general, you have a lot of like technology companies, CRMs, lead gen companies, Facebook ad companies. And so navigating all of that to figure out what works best can, it's not expensive, but it does cost some money. So really at this point, like the struggle is just getting all that stuff together to take the next step of bringing on a new team member, and then finding that team member is going to be the next struggle, then finding the next one, and then going to another city, right? And so it's just kind of a process. Like personal struggle, time management and like saying no to certain things. I mean, I like my personal life right now. It's chill, you know, go to work every day, you know, go home, hang out. Girlfriend's cool, good woman, you know, we got time to travel every couple weekends and stuff like that. So honestly, from a personal standpoint, you know, that focus to keep learning, but I got nothing to complain about really for business or personal. Yeah, I mean, life's fantastic right now.
I'd say being patient, you know, just being patient, like looking at this and saying, holy shit, we have all these tools. And then, you know, fuck, man, we could be there now. Like, you know what I mean? But I have to remember it only takes, it takes a while to do so, you know? And
keep that foot on the gas pedal.
yeah. You know, the foot's always on the gas pedal, but I think it's always like, you know,
take this exit or keep going to find the next one,
and
right?
Then the patient, being patient, but what makes me impatient is truthfully like social media, because I've done personality tests, and I'm like, I'm a number 4 in the Enneagram, which is there's a particular personality, and you have like these outliers like of your personality, which are different numbers, which are whenever you are under stress, you react a particular way away from your standard personality, and then when you're chilling, like this is how you are in idle.
Yeah.
So a part of my personality is fucking envy. So I have a problem looking at other people's Instagrams and thinking to myself, that motherfucker is a lazy person.
Yeah.
Why are they showing me that they're like
They're working.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know I'm very competitive. If you know me, you do personally. But there's a lot of agents, wholesalers, other people that would never know that I'm competitive with them, and they never have met me in their life because I don't like what they're posting. Because I'm like, I will fucking smash you. Like you don't get how hard. Because I know what they do, and I'm like, God damn. And that's the trippy shit about real estate is you be a complete fucking idiot, and you can be super successful. Like there's a guy.
Yeah.
No
we got a deal right now we're working on, and I want to get it done just because somebody that made me mad about something lost the deal.
Yeah, there's a deal right now,
different motivation, man.
This guy he does very well in real estate, and no names, but does not ever answer his fucking phone. Doesn't reply to texts.
That's probably like the most frustrating shit ever, too.
Dude, we have to call him from different numbers to get him to ask. And he's, oh, hey. So what I'm saying is, like, the public doesn't understand. You could be a fucking complete idiot, and you're still making money. Like, so that's the hardest shit in this business. I tell people, like, you have a blank check to do, like, write whatever you want. He's probably, like there was guys in cell phones that were shitty at contracts, but were the greatest with clients. Mm-hmm. And we would literally, as the sales team management, we'd be like, let him be shitty with the people. You check his contract because you're not good at sales. Yeah. To make sure we get the deal done, you know, like
make it work as a team.
Let him cook. So there's some people that are great at cooking with people in person, but then after that, the shit hits the fans, and you're like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you making this much money? You're an idiot. Like, man, if shit off camera, I could rattle off all these people you probably know on this camera, and I show you numbers, you'd be like, damn, I didn't know. But they'll sell it to you on Instagram like they're the best shit since sliced bread, that you should be on their team and be coached by them. Because again, everybody has a misconception that when agents start, so you probably heard this in other places, like the best salesperson sometimes isn't the best management. That's true. The best management isn't the best salesperson. So a lot of times with our industry,
it's always a disconnect.
Yeah, they believe that the best way to produce transactions is to create a team. So you get some agents that sell 1, 2, 3, 4 houses in 1 year, and the next thing you know, they're like teaching training programs and calling them a sales coach. And I'm like, sales fucking coach? Like, what? Like, and because what happens is agents get this misconception that I don't want the shit I don't want to do, I'm going to give to a team, someone else. Yeah. And they'll just pay me for it, right? Like, or I'll just get whenever they sell a house, I'll just get a split off of it. Sounds okay, but there's a lot of shit that gets left out. And there's a lot of turnover in real estate because everybody's willing to run to you and say, I need help. Give me leads. I need to pay my bills. And then you give them leads and you shoot them all your business.
And they're still lazy as fuck.
We've been paying for it. No. They'll open a couple escrows. And then I always say this, an agent's life cycle is like 90 days. The first day they come in, they're crying about how hard their fucking life is and how they need to get paid. And then they get a deal. And then at the end of 90 days, when they pay you a split, right? Like, let's just say we get 25% of that 100% check. Yeah. They'll look at it and they'll be like, I don't need them anymore because I did all the work. And they go leave. And then they come right back, or they go look for another team because they don't realize like what they're missing is they don't stick to the fundamentals, like just showing up every day, which sounds funny, right? Yeah. I tell everybody, man, when I used to do construction, I used to fucking dig holes in 100-degree weather, my dad would we'd plaster houses in 7 Oaks. And I'd be like, well, So you guys are help building and coloring this house, but we don't live in this house.
Mm-hmm.
We ever live in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house, which I will never take nothing away from it, right? We still own that.
Yeah.
But these motherfuckers have 5 bedrooms, 5,000 square feet houses. Like, why doesn't make, to me as a kid, 16, 17, you're like, doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't this person own this house?
Yep.
But I couldn't correlate until I really understood the real estate. And it's just like, you got to know your place. You got to ask questions, dude. Just kind of show up to work. Like, it's just like, God, show up to work. Just show up.
I mean, there's, same with like, other wholesalers, investors. Like we had somebody from a guy office called, and Gary's on the phone and it's on speaker. I'm like, oh no, man, that person stood me up for 2 appointments and stood a friend of ours up. And so Gary's like, yeah, no, you stood us up for 3 appointments. We're not. and the girl's like, well, he's busy. I'm like, I don't care. We don't want anything to do with you guys. Right?
Tell me you're busy.
And you get the same thing. You get like dudes that close like 2 deals.
The big time.
And they're gonna like big time. Oh, I did 80 deals. I'm like, then why don't you know what this paperwork is, or why can't you get this done? I know you didn't do 80
basic
deals.
shit.
And so, man, it makes me crazy. And I'm like, and then you get people who've done 2-3 deals, and they're hosting a master. It's like the guy that loses a bunch of weight, 10 pounds, and all of a sudden he's a fitness coach or whatever.
Yeah.
Like same thing, right? And so there's a lot of like, I don't know, like false gods and like the industries, like false gurus.
I think social media is a big problem.
Yeah.
Creating people like that, pretty much. I'm sorry.
I want to give you some advice here. If you're ever working with an agent and you call them and they don't answer and they text you and say they're in a meeting, they're lying. They don't want to talk to you.
We had somebody
Literally they're doing something else.
I was in the field like for a week. Are you okay?
They're in a meeting with themselves and shit.
like the lack of accountability, and then also too, like you're working with somebody, it's like you think they have your best interest, but they have their best interest for their own time. And a lot of times this is an industry of who willing to get your offer accepted.
Like nepotism,
because we'll be like, well, I know Steve, you're gonna get this deal done.
Yeah.
But if Brandon's from LA, I'm like, fuck, I don't know this dude's gonna get the deal done. I want to get to the end. Like, so obviously you're gonna do what you can within the guidelines to make sure it gets done or who to go with, but. Some people have the biggest presence online, but never will answer their phone. It's all about showing
probably
up
the most frustrating
showing
shit
up
ever,
and not
that
showing
shit.
out. But yeah, man, I mean, it's a hilarious business. Like we always said, whenever we retire, we're gonna start a podcast about really
we'll drop names
going in on the back end of it about all that stuff, man. You'll never get. And I always say the one thing that ruins a real estate deal is a real estate agent.
That's
and
true.
I won. You know what I mean? Like that was really what ruins a deal. I don't think they'll take this. You're not the owner. Why are you telling me what you think the owner won't take? I don't think I should present this offer because
It's funny because like real estate is like it's like
high school.
It's worse than high school, pretty much.
Well, and two, even
Especially
on
with money.
the investment side, in my head, like we were talking about something the other day, and like somebody we know is going to buy something from us. I'm like, man, I would never do that. And then Gary's like, it's not up to you. I'm like, that's a good point, because it's like there's stuff that I wouldn't do in real estate, like hedging the market and things like that.
Yeah.
But people do it, and so what's it to me, right? You got to get out of your own head. Like, you're not in their heads. You got to get out. Sometimes you got to get out of your own way, whether it's the regular side or what what we do.
That's tough too.
It's the wholesaling creative side is definitely a different mentality. Like, you got to really think outside the box.
The creative side is tripped out because when we kind of heard about it and started getting into it, he understood it a little bit, and then we kind of really got better into it. And I'm still getting the grasp of it, but basically what it is there's 2 options for people, right? Let's just say in the situation where they don't want to sell the traditional way or don't want us to buy their house cash. You can, if your home's paid off, you can be the bank and hold the note. You can be the bank for the buyer. Create your own. You could be basically, they're going to you as a lender. They can create up your own interest rate, your own terms, how long you want to have the payment for, etc. And your next question, usually people are like, well, why would someone want to do that and not sell it? Well, some people, that's like, if this is their secondary home, they don't want to inherit all the taxes that they're going to get.
Most people don't know what to do with $200,000
capital gain tax.
The guy that says I am going to get $300,000 from the sale of this house. I'm like, what are you going to do with it? Well, I'm going to go reinvest it in another rental. Like, you just said you didn't like rentals. Like, well, why not you just hold the note? You're already an investor making a percentage off of the person who's buying it from you. It's just a way of thinking, right? Because no one's educated us to that. The other option, which is crazy, is called sub 2. So it's the house isn't paid. The owner continues to keep the mortgage in their name, adds the buyer to the deed, and then makes an agreement, and then now they're taking over their monthly payments, and they walk away from it. It's all put together legally, everything like that, properly done. So then it's like, well, why would I want to take over someone else's, and why would someone want to let you do that? Well, if you're targeting people who purchased within the last year, and people, you have to think about it. Like when people say, "I'm going to get down payment assistance," well, you really got to find out the government's going to give you free money and not want it to be paid back. But let's just say you bought a house 2 years ago and you got no money down, and you have a 2.3 interest rate, which we probably never will see ever again in our lifetime because it just shit show hit at the right time to make this rates happen. So somebody that has this payment, let's just say the house is $2,000 a month and it's $400,000 house. Well, that $400,000 house with today's interest rate is probably going to be closer to what?
Closer to $3,000.
$3,000, right?
Oh man.
Right.
Yeah, so you're talking about a $600-$700 a month payment difference.
So now the most important thing to the buyer and us is trying to buy the debt. I want the debt. I want that payment. So let's just say this person didn't put nothing down. They bought their house a year ago, and when they go sell, well, they still owe up to that 400, right? Because they barely even paid a year's worth of
payments on it. Yeah,
they've been paying $2,000 a month. Maybe they need a job transfer. Some situation happens in their life. Well, if you put it for sale, and let's just say the market really has only went up to $20,000, $30,000, and you pay someone 6% commission, and then your escrow fees, and you're assuming that maybe you get $420 for it because people are trying to negotiate now. You might owe money or walk away with nothing.
Break even, pretty much.
So then you're like, what the fuck do I want to do? I want to be a landlord. I want to rent. I just don't want to deal with this. So that's where we step in and we say, how about we give you, or how about we give them terms. It's your price, our terms. Let's just say the house is worth $4. We're like, we'll give you $420. Fuck, you're gonna give me 20 more thousand than what it's worth. Come up with a percentage down. We give them right there. We're gonna give them a down payment. They do the subject to. We go through. New buyer buys it at a 2.3 interest rate, and they got a $2,000 mortgage. And then we make compensation for facilitating this whole transaction.
Yeah.
And it's all legal, goes through escrow, everything like that. So it's like, holy shit, there's a different way to sell houses. So when people say, I can't get anything worth for my house, I'm like, bring it to us. Like, let us look the deal over and see what we can
And
do.
an average person would never think about some shit like that.
Oh, dude, not even the average real estate agent. 9.5 out of 9.5.
Or the average investor.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, and look, then you're going to figure out if that seller is really motivated, right?
Yeah.
Are they willing to do this, to get this payment? Like if you're bleeding $2,000 a month and there's no end in sight, you got to do something, right? Unless you got hundreds of thousands, but even if you got a bunch of money, you don't want to. You're probably smart because you got a bunch of money. You don't want to lose $2,000 a month, 15, whatever the number is, and so it's just another tool in our toolbox to help sellers.
Case in point, check this. Your neighbor told us, hey, if you want to buy this, here's how much I want for it.
Oh, the limo.
Yeah, he told us a number.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. What if we give you 25? Would you structure a loan with us and hold it? He's like, well, why would you give me $5,000 more than what I want? I'm like, well, so see what I mean? Like I can give you a little bit more, but we can speak your price. We can give you above asking price, structure some terms with you, get it, do the business we need to, and then structure it where we can get it paid off faster. And he does. Maybe he makes that money, but then we're not leveraging so much of our money up front. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like there's so many
Other people's money.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to do it, but it was interesting because people, but again, it has to take somebody that's willing to wait for the long game.
The long-term game,
and be willing to do that. Not everybody is, but it happens, so.
Well, and we heard a good analogy, like a teeter-totter. You got price on one side and terms on the other. Higher price, better terms, right? Lower price, worse terms. You can't have
Both.
high price, bad terms. It snaps the teeter-totter in half, and
that's
the
true.
system's broken.
So all this shit is stuff we had to learn from someone saying
really
they heard
learned
about
it
it.
the last, like,
YouTube.
2 months.
We had to track down
month and
other
a half.
coaches that do
Yeah.
this. Like it's been a
Because
been
it is
full
it's something that originally those subject to things I kind of had trouble getting behind because I was like, well, what if you have 10 of them and you
Understanding the
you
concept.
die, right? Like
Yeah.
no, like to protect the sellers. What if you do 10 deals and like you get in a car accident, right? You can't function. So one of the guys we talked, he's like, no, this company does the insurance, like. We insure it. We change, to make sure that the payments get paid, or if something happens, the loans get paid off. And I'm like, okay, well that makes me
sense.
feel a lot better
Yeah.
because I'm like, man, you can burn.
But again, that goes back to we could have spent time on Google and YouTube looking for the answer, right?
Well, how long would it have took you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Or we just call the guy that's doing it right now, and we just post to him the question. He's like, "Oh, I got a solution for you." Shit, that's quick. Like, and he's
Yeah.
a great dude we work with here local. Like, hats off to him. He knows his name's Ephraim. So much more than us, man. He's such a fucking valuable asset. And he's been doing it for years, and he always comes off as, man, you're not my competition. We can collab.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's perfect. And like
It's hard to
like I
find
said,
people like that too.
Yeah,
Yeah, be surprised. Yeah, for girls.
Shit.
What's that time looking like, man? We knocked it out.
You knocked it out, brother.
All right,
I
cool.
want to appreciate you guys, from the bottom of my heart for you guys coming at so early in the morning, dropping knowledge on this episode, and shit, I learned a lot. But let's give Gary and Brandon a shout out. We're gonna put all the stuff down below, all the contact information if you guys are interested in investing and maybe
or looking
securing
for a
future.
career with us or getting started doing some stuff.
Or should it, if you just want to follow the life, just look at
Oh,
Yeah.
live.
just follow the life. Look at the Instagram. We'll try to.
Yeah, so I
we'll
put
try
all
to
you guys'
entertain
information down, and
Try to entertain.
man, but guys, please come back for another episode, man. Maybe get a little bit more in depth,
Yep.
and maybe how to start, like the average Joe, how to start investing on it, because that's my underlying goal for my kids. I want to leave them something when I kick the bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. Anytime, dude. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
All right.